Professor Zixnack nervously adjusted his tentacles as he surveyed the classroom. Today was the day he'd been dreading since the start of the semester, the day the exchange students from Earth would present their cultural lecture to his Galactic Sociology 101000101 class. He had tried to prepare his regular students, a diverse group of herbivores from peaceful garden worlds and silicon-based life forms from gas giants, as best he could. But how do you prepare anyone for their first encounter with Deathworlders? As the two humans entered the room, a tense hush fell over the class. The smaller one, a female, if Zixnack's memory of xenobiology was correct, flashed what he hoped was a friendly smile, not a display of aggression. Her larger companion, a male with impressive upper body strength, nodded toward the professor. "Thank you for having us," the female said cheerfully. "I'm Sarah, and this is Mike. We're excited to share a bit about human culture with you today." Zixnack's eye stalk swiveled nervously. "Yes, welcome. Please begin your presentation whenever you're ready." Sarah stepped forward, her movements fluid yet predatory in a way that made several students instinctively retreat into their protective shells. "So what do you all know about humans?" she asked with a bright tone. A gelatinous being from a low-gravity swamp world timidly raised a tendril. "You eat other animals?" it squeaked. Sarah laughed, the sudden sound causing half the class to flinch. "That's right, although Mike here is actually a vegetarian." The muscular human shrugged nonchalantly. "Gotta get those gains somehow. I just use plant protein." The students stared in silence, their confusion evident. Well, Sarah continued, undeterred, one thing central to human culture is our drive to push ourselves beyond our limits, to go farther, faster, higher than anyone thought possible. She pulled up a holo image of a human running. "This is a marathon. It's a race where humans run for 2 kilometers, or about 26. 2 miles without stopping." The class collectively gasped in horror. "But why?" asked a crystalline being, its facets dimming in distress. Mike grinned. "For fun." "Fun?" Professor Zixnack stammered, trying to grasp the concept. Sarah nodded. "Yes, humans do this voluntarily. In fact, some train for months, even years, to compete in marathons." "That seems wildly unnecessary." Observed a sentient fungal colony from the back of the room. "Oh, there are much more efficient ways of getting around," Mike admitted. "But that's not the point. It's about challenging yourself, seeing what you're capable of." "But why?" The gelatinous being, Gloop, asked again, struggling to comprehend. Sarah exchanged a look with Mike, both holding back laughter at the alien's confusion. Well, Sarah explained, humans have this strange idea that doing hard things for no practical reason can be rewarding. Rewarding. Repeated an arachnoid creature, its multiple eyes blinking in disbelief. Mike chuckled. "Well, you get a participation medal and maybe a banana at the end, but really it's about the internal reward, the sense of accomplishment." Professor Zixnack's tendrils twisted in confusion. "So, these activities release a narcotic in your system?" "Not exactly," Sarah said, fighting to maintain a straight face, "though there's something called a runner's high. It's more about knowing you overcame a difficult challenge." "But why seek out challenges?" asked the fungal colony again, bewildered. "Is your world not challenging enough?" Mike grinned. "Oh, Earth is plenty challenging. But we're hardwired to take on even more. If we don't have real challenges, we make them up." He pulled up another image, this time of a human climbing a sheer cliff face without ropes or safety gear. The class erupted in alarmed clicks, whistles, and rumbles. "But they could fall," screeched a feathered being, its plumage puffing in distress. "Yup," Sarah confirmed cheerfully. "That's what makes it exciting." "Exciting?" The word was repeated in a dozen languages, each version more incredulous than the last. Mike clarified, "Not all humans, of course. But yeah, some of us love pushing right up to the edge of what's possible, and sometimes beyond." "Beyond what's possible?" The crystalline being's facets pulsed with confusion. "That's illogical." Sarah grinned, leaning into the tension. "Welcome to humanity, where we treat the impossible like a personal challenge." She brought up a holo image of a spacecraft. "This is from the early days of our space program. We decided we wanted to send people to the moon, even though we had no idea if it was actually possible. But why?" Gloop gurgled again, flabbergasted. Mike and Sarah both laughed, alarming their audience further. "It wasn't about resources," Mike explained, wiping away tears of laughter. "There was nothing valuable on the moon. We just wanted to see if we could do it." You risked lives and expended vast resources just to see if it could be done? Professor Zixnak's eye stalks drooped, utterly baffled. Pretty much Sarah confirmed brightly. Oh, and because another group of humans said they'd do it first, and we couldn't let that happen. This was met with stunned silence. You see, Mike explained, humans have this thing called competition. We like to see who can do something better, faster, or first. But why? Asked the arachnoid student. Surely cooperation is more beneficial to the species as a whole. Sarah nodded. We cooperate too, but competition pushes us to innovate. It drives us to achieve things we never thought possible, like sending people to a barren rock in space for no practical reason. The fungal colony asked, its tone dripping with sarcasm. Exactly. Mike beamed, completely missing or choosing to ignore the sarcasm. And then we decided to go even further. We've sent probes to the far reaches of our solar system and beyond. He pulled up another holo image of a tiny spacecraft. This is Voyager 1. We launched it in 1977, and it's now over 5 billion miles from Earth. That seems highly impractical, observed the crystalline being. Surely there are more efficient ways to gather data about distant space. Sarah shrugged. Probably, but where's the fun in that? Fun. Professor Zixnak repeated faintly. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what we think it means. Mike grinned widely. Oh, trust me, Professor. Human fun is probably beyond your wildest nightmares. This did nothing to reassure the increasingly anxious class. Let's talk about some other fun human activities. Sarah suggested with a mischievous twinkle in her eye. She pulled up an image of a human jumping from a platform with a large fabric attached to their back. This is skydiving. Are they falling? Gloop asked, its gelatinous form quivering. Yup, Mike confirmed cheerfully. They jump out of a perfectly good aircraft, free fall for a bit, then open a parachute to land safely. But why? Several students asked at once, their voices ranging from horror to disbelief. Sarah grinned. For the adrenaline rush, of course. There's nothing quite like plummeting toward the ground at terminal velocity. The class stared at her in horrified silence. Mike chimed in. Come on, don't tell me none of you have ever wondered what it's like to fall from a great height. No, came the unanimous, vehement reply. Mike mused, rubbing his chin. Guess that's just a human thing. I should hope so, muttered Professor Zixnak, making a mental note to update the university's safety protocols regarding human exchange students. Seemingly oblivious to the class's distress, Sarah continued. And that's just the beginning. Some humans like to take it even further with something called wingsuit flying. She brought up a video of a human in a bat-like suit soaring between mountain peaks. The class watched in stunned silence as the human navigated through narrow gaps, skimming perilously close to jagged rocks. As you can see, Sarah narrated. The wingsuit allows humans to achieve something close to true flight. Of course, one wrong move and she made a loud splat sound and a hand gesture that caused several students to whimper in terror. Gloop oozed under its desk. But don't worry, Mike added, misinterpreting the class's reaction. Wingsuit flyers train for years. It's perfectly safe. You and I have very different definitions of safe, the arachnoid muttered dryly. Sarah laughed. Oh, you have no idea. Wait until you hear about free diving. She brought up an image of a human descending into the dark ocean. This sport involves diving as deep as possible on a single breath. The current record is 214 meters, about 702 feet. But how do they not implode from the pressure? Asked the crystalline being, its facets pulsing in panic. Oh, the human body is surprisingly resilient, Mike assured them, which somehow wasn't as comforting as he intended. Of course there are risks, Sarah added. Shallow water blackout, nitrogen narcosis, decompression sickness. Why would anyone voluntarily subject themselves to such dangers? Professor Zixnak interrupted, his tendrils twisting in alarm. Sarah and Mike exchanged another amused glance. Well, Professor, Sarah began, as we've been trying to explain, humans have this strange compulsion to test our limits. We're not content with just accepting our boundaries, we want to push past them to see what we're truly capable of. Even if what you're capable of is dying in increasingly elaborate and unnecessary ways. The fungal colony inquired acidly. Mike burst out laughing. Now you're getting it. Though we do try to minimize the actual dying part. It's more about coming as close to death as possible without crossing that line. The class groaned collectively. Come on, Sarah coaxed. Surely some of you understand the appeal of pushing your limits, of discovering what you're truly capable of. The class exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, a timid avian being chirped, "I once ate a seed that wasn't fully ripe. It was exhilarating." Sarah and Mike stared at the alien for a long moment before bursting into laughter. "Well," Mike said between guffaws, "I guess we all start somewhere." Professor Zix-Nack, desperate to regain control of the class, cleared his throat. "Perhaps we could move on to some less perilous aspects of human culture?" Sarah wiped away tears of laughter. "Of course, Professor. Though I have to warn you, even our less perilous activities might seem a bit extreme to you." She brought up an image of a human running with large, horned animals chasing close behind. "This is from an event called Running of the Bulls in Pamplona, Spain. It's a festival where people voluntarily run in front of angry, charging bulls." The class erupted in another cacophony of alarm sounds. But why?" Gloop quivered from beneath its desk. "Why would you run toward danger instead of away from it?" "For the thrill," I guess Mike shrugged. "And bragging rights. It's considered pretty badass to participate." "Badass?" The crystalline being asked, its facets dim with confusion. "It means cool or impressive," Sarah explained. "In human culture, there's often a lot of prestige associated with doing dangerous or difficult things. So, you risk your lives for social status?" The arachnoid inquired, somewhere between horrified and grudgingly impressed. "When you put it like that, it does sound a bit silly," Mike admitted. "But it's more than that. It's about facing your fears, pushing your limits, and experiencing life to the fullest. By running from angry bovines." Professor Zix-Nack's eye stalk swiveled in disbelief. Sarah laughed. "Well, that's just one example. Humans find all sorts of ways to challenge themselves. Some climb mountains, others dive to the ocean's depths, and some push their bodies to the limit in ultramarathons or triathlons." She brought up a series of images showing humans engaged in extreme sports and endurance events. The class watched in stunned silence as they saw people surfing enormous waves, skiing down near vertical slopes, and competing in grueling obstacle courses. But why? The question came from multiple students at once, their voices a mix of horror and fascination. Mike grinned. "You know, that's a question we humans ask ourselves. Sometimes too. But deep down, it's because we're not satisfied with just existing. We want to know what we're capable of. We want to test our limits." "Exactly," Sarah added, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "We have this fire inside us, this drive to explore, to push boundaries, to go beyond what anyone thought was possible. And when we do that, when we achieve something we didn't think we could, there's no feeling like it in the universe." The class fell silent, absorbing this information. Finally, the fungal colony spoke up. "It seems inefficient. Surely your species would progress faster if you focused your energies on practical pursuits rather than these dangerous pastimes." Sarah and Mike exchanged a knowing look. "You'd think so, wouldn't you?" Sarah replied. "But here's the thing, a lot of our greatest achievements have come from this same drive to push boundaries." She brought up a series of images: the first powered flight, the moon landing, great works of art and architecture. All of these came from humans looking at the limits of what was possible and saying, "Nah, we can go further." It's not always about the practical benefits. Mike added, "Sometimes it's just about the joy of discovery, the thrill of achievement. And often what seems like a pointless pursuit leads to innovations that benefit everyone." He gestured to the image of the Apollo moon landing. "The space race, for example, gave us satellite technology, advanced our understanding of physics, and led to countless innovations we use every day." "So you're saying," Professor Zix-Nack ventured hesitantly, "that these dangerous and seemingly pointless activities actually drive your species' progress?" Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. It's all interconnected. The same drive that makes some humans want to climb mountains or dive to crushing depths is what pushes others to make scientific breakthroughs or create incredible works of art. It's about always asking, what if? What if we could go faster, higher, further?" Mike added, "What if we could cure this disease, build this impossible structure, create this groundbreaking technology?" The class sat in contemplative silence, processing this new perspective. Even Professor Zix-Nack seemed lost in thought, his tentacles twisting thoughtfully. The avian student chirped hesitantly, "Doesn't this constant drive for challenge and achievement lead to dissatisfaction? Are humans ever content?" Sarah and Mike exchanged a glance, their amusement tinged with a hint of wistfulness. Now that Mike said, is a philosophical question humans have been grappling with for millennia. It's true, Sarah admitted. This drive can sometimes lead to restlessness. There's always another mountain to climb, another record to break. But for most humans, it's the journey, the striving that brings fulfillment. And besides, Mike added with a grin, we're pretty good at celebrating our achievements along the way. He brought up an image of a crowded stadium filled with cheering humans. This is what happens after a major sporting event. Win or lose, humans gather to celebrate the effort, the spectacle, the sheer joy of competition. You celebrate losing? The crystalline being asked, its facets pulsing in confusion. Sarah laughed. Sometimes, yeah. For us, it's not always about the end result, it's about the attempt, the willingness to put yourself out there and give it your all. That seems illogical, the fungal colony observed. Mike grinned. Oh, humans are nothing if not illogical. But that's part of what makes us who we are. We're not content with just accepting things as they are. We always want to know what's over the next hill, what's possible if we push a little harder. He brought up a new image, this one of a human in a strange suit standing on a red, dusty landscape. This is an artist's conception of the first human on Mars. It hasn't happened yet, but we're working on it. But why? Gloop burbled, cautiously re-emerging from under its desk. Your own world is not fully explored or understood. Why expend resources to visit another? Sarah's eyes gleamed with excitement. Because it's there. Because it's a challenge. Because every time we push beyond our limits, we learn something new about ourselves and the universe. And Mike added with a mischievous grin, because someone said it couldn't be done. The class exchanged bewildered glances. Professor Zixnack's eye stalks drooped in resignation. I begin to understand, he said slowly, why humans are classified as a Class 5 existential threat to galactic peace. Sarah and Mike burst out laughing. Oh, come on, Sarah protested between giggles. We're not that bad. Yeah, Mike agreed. We're just a bunch of crazy apes on a deadly mud ball, trying to figure out what we're capable of. That the arachnoid observed dryly is precisely what concerns us. Sarah's grin widened. You're worried about us? That's sweet. But don't worry, for all our Deathworld craziness, we're also pretty good at taking care of each other. She brought up a new series of images, humans forming chains to rescue others from floodwaters, firefighters rushing into burning buildings, doctors tirelessly working in emergency rooms. You see, Sarah explained, that same drive that makes us do crazy things for fun also makes us push ourselves to help others. We're not content with just looking out for ourselves, we want to make things better for everyone. Yeah, Mike chimed in. For every human doing something insanely dangerous for the thrill of it, there's another one pushing the boundaries of medicine, technology, or social progress. The class seemed to relax slightly, though Professor Zixnack still looked skeptical. So you're saying, he ventured cautiously, that this obsession with pushing limits can be channeled into positive pursuits? Absolutely. Sarah nodded enthusiastically. Some of our greatest achievements have come from redirecting that energy into solving problems or helping others. She brought up an image of a human in a wheelchair competing in a race. This is the Paralympics, an athletic competition for humans with physical disabilities. These athletes push the boundaries of what's possible every day, inspiring others and driving innovations in medical technology and accessibility. Fascinating, murmured the crystalline being, its facets pulsing with interest. So even when faced with physical limitations, humans seek to transcend them? Especially then, Mike confirmed. There's nothing humans love more than being told something's impossible. It just makes us more determined to find a way. He brought up a new image of a human with prosthetic legs sprinting on a track. These prosthetics allow people who've lost limbs to not only walk again, but to run, compete, and even break athletic records. The class watched in awe as Mike played a video of prosthetic-wearing athletes sprinting with incredible speed. But that's not possible, Gloop burbled in confusion. How can an artificial limb perform better than a biological one? Sarah grinned. And that, my friend, is exactly the kind of question that drives human innovation. Someone looked at the limitations of the human body and thought, how can we do better? It's not just about physical achievements, Mike added. He brought up a series of images showing complex mathematical equations, scientific diagrams, and intricate artwork. We apply that same drive to every field: science, mathematics, art, philosophy. We're always asking, what's next? What's possible? How can we go further? The class was silent for a moment, processing this information. Finally, the avian being spoke up. It seems exhausting. Do humans ever rest? Sarah and Mike burst out laughing. Oh, we rest, Sarah assured them, wiping away tears of laughter. In fact, some humans have turned relaxation into an extreme sport of its own. She brought up an image of a human lounging in a hammock on a beach. This is what we call a vacation. Some humans spend all year working hard just so they can spend a week or two doing absolutely nothing. But that seems contradictory to everything you've told us, Professor Zixnack protested, his tentacles twisting in confusion. Mike grinned. Welcome to the wonderful world of human contradictions, Professor. We contain multitudes. You see, Sarah explained, humans are complex. We're driven to achieve, to push boundaries, to test our limits. But we're also capable of appreciating stillness, of finding joy in simple pleasures. She brought up a new series of images: humans sharing meals with friends and family, reading books in cozy nooks, tending to gardens, meditating in serene natural settings. These moments of peace and connection are just as important to us as our grand adventures and achievements. She continued. They're what give us the strength and perspective to keep pushing forward. Yeah, Mike added, it's all about balance. We push ourselves hard, but we also know how to kick back and enjoy life. It's part of what makes us human. The class seemed to relax a bit at this, some of the tension easing out of the room. So the fungal colony ventured cautiously. Humans are not constantly engaged in death-defying activities. Sarah laughed. No, not constantly. Though I'll admit, even our relaxing activities can sometimes get a bit extreme by your standards. She brought up an image of humans engaged in a massive water gun fight. This is from a festival in Thailand called Songkran. It started as a water blessing ceremony and evolved into a nationwide water fight. The class watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as humans gleefully drenched each other with water pistols, hoses, and even large buckets. But why? Gloop quivered again. Mike shrugged with a wide grin. Because it's fun. And it's a great way to cool off during the hottest time of the year. You see, Sarah explained, humans have this amazing ability to turn almost anything into a celebration. A challenge, or preferably both. We take simple ideas and push them to their limits, just to see what happens. She brought up a series of images showing various unusual human festivals: people racing down a hill, chasing a wheel of cheese, engaging in enormous tomato fights, and building impossibly tall human towers. These might seem bizarre or pointless to you, she continued, but for us, they're ways of bringing communities together, creating shared experiences, and finding joy and excitement in everyday life. And Mike added with a wink, they're great ways to test our skills, push our limits, and maybe set a weird world record or two. The class stared at the images in stunned silence, trying to process the sheer variety and apparent insanity of human recreational activities. I think I'm beginning to understand, Professor Zixnack said slowly, his eye stalks swiveling as he studied the images. Humans don't just push their physical limits, you push the boundaries of everything. Constantly, Sarah beamed at him. Exactly. For humans, life isn't about staying within predefined limits. It's about constantly redefining what's possible, whether that's in sports, science, art, or even how we have fun. We're always looking for new challenges, new experiences, new ways to surprise ourselves and each other, Mike added. The class was quiet for a moment, each student lost in thought. Finally, the crystalline being spoke up, its facets pulsing with what might have been excitement. I must admit, it chimed. While your species' proclivities are alarming, they are also intriguing. Perhaps there is something to be learned from this approach to existence. Sarah and Mike exchanged delighted glances. Now that Mike said, is music to our ears. Because if there's one thing humans love more than pushing our own limits, it's encouraging others to push theirs. So, Sarah finished with a grin, who's up for a little adventure. We've got some beginner-level skydiving gear in our ship, and I bet we could rig up a bungee jump from the astronomy tower. The horrified screams of the class drowned out the rest of her words, but Sarah and Mike just laughed, their eyes twinkling with mischief and the irrepressible human spirit of adventure. As the chaos unfolded, Professor Zixnack slumped in his hover chair, all four of his eye stalks drooping in resignation. He made a mental note to update the university's insurance policies, install additional safety equipment, and perhaps invest in a stiff drink. Dealing with human exchange students, he realized, was going to push him to his limits in ways he had never imagined. But as he watched Sarah and Mike enthusiastically explaining the thrills of freefall to a terrified yet oddly fascinated group of students, he felt something unexpected stir within him, a tiny spark of curiosity, a whisper of what if. And in that moment, Professor Zixnack understood the true danger and the irresistible allure of humanity. For, in their relentless pursuit of the impossible, humans had a habit of making others believe in the possible. And in a galaxy of limitations and careful planning, that made them the most unpredictable and transformative force imaginable. With a sigh that was equal parts trepidation and anticipation, Professor Zixnack realized that his comfortable, predictable life was about to get a whole lot more interesting. And deep down, in a place he'd never admit to, he was almost looking forward to it. After all, he mused, watching his students cautiously poking at a human safety harness. If you can't beat them, maybe it's time to join them. Just as soon as he figured out how to explain bungee jumping to the university board without causing mass panic. The future, it seemed, was going to be anything but boring, and really, wasn't that what being human or friends with humans was all about?